But there is a special, do you want to explain the special about melanin and how it protects the cell, the DNA inside the nucleus? That's very important.
Part of the reason you can't do these experiments, you know, where there's a lot of melanin around, the melanin actually in a lot of people, in black people, it's actually spread out through.
Know that all the races came from us? Did you know that you are the mother and the father of every human being that lives?
So you got to remember, Mexico was dominated by the Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look is because I'm 65% Spaniard.
Yeah.
Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or
is that black people are the earth. Black people are the only unmutated humanity. They told you humans came from Africa like it was a migration story.
So a white woman is admitting to the fact that black people were the first humans on this planet Earth. And even when it comes to America, black people were there before Americans or the white Americans arrived. And the so-called Indians or the indigenous Indians or whatever that they've been saying also arrived. I don't know what you will say about this, but I have a lot of videos for you people giving facts upon fact upon fact on this particular matter. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. You don't lose anything by liking. Just give the video a thumbs up. Let's go into the video, listen, come back and talk.
We're still teaching that Columbus discovered America. We're still teaching that those people who lived here were called Indians because of Christopher Columbus. It's all a bunch of hokum. It isn't true. The first people that inhabited this continent and every other continent on the face of the earth came from Africa. People from Africa came to what we call the North American continent between 20,000 and 10,000 years before Columbus was a gleam in his father's eye. What we call black people were here before there were any white people on the face of the earth. There were no Indians here when Christopher Columbus got here. There were people from Africa who had been here for over 10,000 years before Christopher Columbus was born. It's time for us to teach our children the truth.
Did you know that there wouldn't be a white person if we didn't exist? Did you know that all the races came from us? Did you know that you are the mother and the father of every human being that lives on this planet, that they all started from the black man and woman? They're not going to teach you this in school. And you probably didn't go far enough in school to study genetics. But I want to share this with you because you need to rap about this. There was a great white anthropologist. His name is S.B. Leakey, L-E-A-K-E. You can Google him, look him up. Leakey wanted to find the origin of man. He may have stopped in Europe, but he didn't stay there because life did not originate in Europe. You know where he ended up? In Africa, looking at the bones of ancient people. Now, did you know there's a science that they could take your bone and say, oh, this is a black person, or this is a Native American, or this is an Asian, or this is a white person, because your genetic structure is such that you have the strongest of bones. They tried to make slaves of our native brothers and sisters, but it destroyed them. But the more they put on us, we survived.
Look up how old African people are, and then look up how old Europeans are. Let's do that. This is Google. It's not. Google wasn't made by a black person, so no one can say shit to us. So
Africans are around 7 million years old.
we're 7 million years old. All right. Happy birthday, Africa. How old are Europeans?
The genetic lineage of Europe mysteriously transformed about 4,500 years ago.
Are you kidding me?
Okay, hold on.
You're 4,500 years old.
Wait, how old?
And we 7 million.
Well, African civilization was 3150 BC. I think this is a more complicated question. So the oldest civilization is from Southern Africa, the San people from Southern
The
Africa.
San people that look Asian. Yes. The San people. That's where everybody's traced from. You can see the documentary, The Journey of Man, where this white guy, who's a geneticist, proved that. The Journey of Man. It's on YouTube. They even have a book. This white dude went out, so you guys will believe it. Blonde-haired white guy wanted to find out the origin of everyone, and they trace it back to those San people who are from South Africa, who have Asiatic faces. That is where Asian people have their faces from. The Asian look is African. It is not from China. It's from Africa. There are African tribes that have Asiatic faces. That's where it comes from. People come from Africa. Why are we surprised? There are albino Africans.
Black people are the first people. Black people are the mothers and fathers of everybody on this planet. The first people to know about God. The first people to be mathematicians, architects, scientists, philosophers, to know about astronomy. But when the people who classify themselves as white started taking over, they knew of the critical importance in the area of religion of telling people, the whole world of colored people, that God was white.
All right, racists, let's talk about the truth. There is so much discourse lately about who is native and who is indigenous, and even the nerve to bring up who is the architect of soul food. And what everyone needs to understand is that black people are the earth. Black people are the only unmutated humanity. They told you humans came from Africa like it was a migration story. But that's not the truth. The truth is, Africa is the first face of the earth. And blackness is the source of all biology. Everyone else? Genetic drift, mutational echo, survival glitches adapted to ice and exile. Let's talk origins. The black woman is the womb of the world. Forget the Eve in the garden story. That was a stolen metaphor. The real Eve lives in the woman's mitochondria. And not just any women. Melanin-rich, thick-hipped, thick-lipped, and copper-toned. Elegant, poised, literally perfect, planet-rooted black women. White women don't carry the full ancestral genome. Asian, Mexican, and Native women only carry fragments. Black women carry the total code. She doesn't reproduce diversity. She births the whole species. When small African offshoot groups migrated north, they weren't evolving. They were mutating, adapting to survival, not thriving. That's where lighter skin, narrow nostrils, reduced melanin, and behavioral changes began. All signs of environmental stress, not superiority. You don't get white by evolving. You get white by forgetting the sun. And that forgetting is not advancement. It's progression. The white genome contains 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Let me repeat, they didn't just descend from humans. They were cavemen. Black people have 0 Neanderthal admixture. That's not a joke. That's biology. Black people are the originals. Non-black people are the remix. The problem is, the remix decided to express its evil nature by attempting to erase the original track. Let's talk indigenous. The term indigenous was invented by settlers to decide who was native enough to be managed, named, and displaced. But indigenous is a political term, not a genetic one. And political terms can't overwrite blood memory. Being first on the continent does not make you first on the planet. However, black people being first on the planet means they are first on every continent. The black genome is Earth's source code. Everyone else is just running a copy of their biological operating system. The war against black genetics is a war against humanity. Melanin isn't pigment, it's the processor. It's the molecule that translates solar energy into life. Plants have it, animals have it, humans need it. Black people have the highest concentration of it, which means black people don't just live on Earth, they translate it. They are not just a race, they are the root species. Black isn't a color, it's the motherboard. Every other group? Adaptations, mutations, and mistakes. This isn't supremacy. This is truth. Black people didn't come from Africa. Africa came from black people.
Did you know that black people only have 0.3% Neanderthal DNA? Every other race on the planet has 1 to 2%, and black people have 0.3. So in reality, black people are more human than any other race on this planet. These white supremacists going around saying that they're the peak human. No, sweetheart. Genetically, black people are the superior humans.
You can understand why black people have been demonized so much when you understand that black people are literally the blueprint. The first humans to walk this earth were black. Every other genotype and every other race came after that through genetic mutation. That is not downplaying the beauty of other races, but that is just saying that it is no coincidence that darker skin has been demonized for so long, because there was a fragility in identity with any other race, because the root of all races is blackness.
When you understand that the first humans to ever walk this planet were black, you can understand where white fragility, but also white supremacy comes from. Any oppression comes from a fear of not being good enough, a fear of competition. And when you understand that the blueprint is literally a black woman, a black man, you can understand why white people have felt the need to conquer people of color's land, because black people are closer to the DNA makeup of the original people to be here on earth than white people are.
Right.
But there is a special, do you want to explain the special about melanin and how it protects the cell, the DNA inside the nucleus? That's very important.
Part of the reason you can't do these experiments, where there's a lot of melanin around, the melanin actually in a lot of people, in black people, it's actually spread out through the skin. It spreads out through the cells and covers everything from the actions of the ultraviolet light.
There's no doubt in people with higher melanin, natural higher melanin, that it's far more likely that that melanin will be coating the nucleus, the cell wall of the nucleus of the DNA. Now, the point about that is that ultraviolet light, which is often used to splice DNA, is blocked by that melanin. It absorbs it. It doesn't allow it in to interfere with the DNA. And it could well be, and this is Nigel's thesis, that this was a blocker for them when they were trying to genetically alter the species. And therefore, when maybe just out of random mutation, something like an albino came along, they discovered, wow, we can get straight in.
Right.
And it may well be that the paler-skinned nation, people on the earth, maybe have that pale skin because of this genetic experimentation to make things easier for them to work on human DNA. And in fact, Professor Steve Jones argues that this thing about vitamin D being, pale skin being there to allow vitamin D to be absorbed and so on, all these theories about why pale skin happened in the first place, he believes it's not an adequate explanation. There is no real explanation or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
Yeah, because I think if
dark skin is always an advantage in every circumstance.
Right, because most people would just automatically assume, well, they went to live in the north where there's less sun, so therefore their skin changed colour. But that's not the case.
According to Professor Steve Jones, an eminent professor of biology, that is absolute nonsense.
Right. Okay.
There's just no reason at all for pale skin.
You would want to absorb more light, and why did we lose hair if we came to a colder climate, etc.
Yeah.
So obviously something's wrong with that idea.
Right. All right. And Nigel contends that the white races, the northern European races, have probably had the most interference from this outside entity called the grey alien.
Yeah, and he doesn't say that. It's very important to say he doesn't say that from the point of view of a kind of reverse racism.
Right.
It's just he's letting us know that, right, that's there, you may need to do something about it, and maybe suggesting ways that we could do something about it. And if you look at the record of the European nations throughout history, in terms of colonialism, imperialism, and what the havoc they've wreaked on the world, it makes the point
that
really.
It's the blue-eyed white races that have got their finger on the nuclear. Well, I mean, what about China? Because he mentions the Chinese as well, doesn't he? He says that they've had significant intervention. Am I right there?
That's right. Yes, there's been interception all across the board. They found ways of doing it, but the most efficient way to do it is on cell nucleuses that aren't protected by the melanin shield. That's just the most efficient, easiest way to do it.
The original inhabitants or the original creators of the Indus Valley civilization which is also called Mohenjo-daro and Harappan civilization, was created by the black man. People came from Africa. About 7,000 BC, which is 9,000 years back, maybe even earlier than that. They brought agriculture, they domesticated most of the animals, they were highly civilized, they had two-story buildings, sanitation systems, sewage system, they had built-in cleaning system in the sewage, so the solids would not block the liquid passage. They had chutes, so they can drop the garbage from the upper level to lower levels. They had individual wells, they had courtyards, highly civilized conditions they were living. They're very peaceful agricultural people, very well flourishing civilization.
Everybody needs to watch this video. You know what really kills me? When white people or light-skinned Latinos say that the first person on earth was white. Like, for real? You really think that? Let me enlighten you just for one quick second. What you see back there? You see outer space, right? And what do you think consumes most of outer space? Dark matter. Dark matter is dark, is black, right? Without black, there ain't no light. Without black, there ain't no life. Without black, there ain't no other colors. When you take all the colors and you mix them together, what color do you get? You get black. Without darkness, there wouldn't have been any light. So please, all my white people and light-skinned Latinos, please stop telling that lie and that crazy-ass joke.
A lot of black people ask questions like, where was God when slavery and colonization happened? Where was God when our ancestors were butchered to death and overworked in cotton plantations? And today, I want to explain something that will hopefully help you answer that question. By now, we all know that whoever created the universe made a decision to make black people the first human beings on the planet. Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 says, "And God said, let us make man in our own image and let them have dominion over all things on earth." Black people were created and given the power to rule over all creations, and indeed they did so for thousands of years. Black people were the first people on the planet to establish a civilization. They were the first people to develop family units, laws, currencies, politics, education, architecture, medicine, spirituality. Black people were the first people to understand how melanin works and how special it was. Melanin in ancient Africa was the basis of African spirituality, but when a mutation occurred as recorded in Genesis 6, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. When Africans started giving birth to non-melanated or slightly melanated people, inclusion became a problem, and therefore all non-melanated people were kicked out of the continent into the inferno called hell to establish survival in Europe. European civilization began in the cold caves in Rome, with the founders being Romulus and his twin brother Remus, who had to survive in the wilderness through suckling a she-wolf. Wolves took care of them until safety, hence the narrative dog is a man's best friend. When the twins grew up and learned about their identity, they decided to go back and retaliate. When a parent rejects a child and that child grows, survives, and perhaps becomes successful, when that child meets the parent again in future, the results can be unknown. And in the case of Africa and Europe, the results were toxic, graphic, and highly dangerous because the abandonment, the hatred, and the anger DNA was still alive. East Africa is not only the cradle of mankind, East Africa is also the place where albinism began. East Africans chased the mutants from the Garden of Eden into the cold hell. The mutants survived and developed equipments for their defense mechanism. When the defense equipments reached their peak, they decided to come back to Africa to butcher, enslave, and drag Africa through the mud. because the heart was never healed. So where was God, you may ask? When you study astronomy, you realize that the black hole is the most powerful thing on this planet. But guess what holds it all together? A dark matter called melanin. Melanocytes that produce melanin are the second most sophisticated cells in the human body, after the pyramidal cells in the cerebral cortex that aid in thinking. Melanin is a powerful absorber of energy, yet words, feelings, emotions, sounds, and all living things all exist together in the spirit realm as energy. Melanin does not only block UV rays. Melanin can manipulate electrons. Melanin can absorb radiation. Melanin can create energy. Melanin can produce electricity. Melanin has power. And that is where God has been the whole time. The biggest lessons that Africans needed to learn here is the moment you exclude anything that is a part of you as not a part of you, then you're creating a future conflict for yourself. Whenever you reject a part of yourself, you're creating a resistance from within. And just like love can make the world go round, hate can make the world stop. White supremacy, patriarchy, racism, deforestation, animal cruelty, capitalism, poverty are all manifestations of a separation that occurred. They are all manifestations of a rejection, of anger, of a heart that was never healed. My people only perish due to lack of knowledge, for where there is no understanding, people perish. But as it is written in Matthew chapter 24, verse 34, truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. We are all one, and we are all each other's problem, and we must heal together in order to stop greed from benefiting from our separation.
My people, I encourage all of you to share this video with any beautiful black children that you know, as I share all the facts that reveal that we are in fact the first people, the first civilization, the first explorers, which is why our ancestors' bones have been found all over the world, including North and South America, thousands of years before anyone else. This information comes from the research of the top archaeologists in the world. Facts. The age of the oldest fossils in Eastern Africa, widely recognized as representing our species, Homo sapiens, has long been uncertain. But now, dating of a massive volcanic eruption in Ethiopia reveals that they are much older than previously thought. And yes, Ethiopia is in Africa, where all black people are from. The remains known as Omo 1 were found in Ethiopia in the late 1960s, and scientists have been attempting to date them precisely ever since by using the chemical fingerprints of volcanic ash layers found above and below the sediments in which the fossils were found. An international team of scientists led by the University of Cambridge has reassessed the age of Omo 1. Earlier attempts to date the fossils suggest that they were less than 200,000 years old, but the new research shows that they must be older than a colossal volcanic eruption that took place 230,000 years ago. The Omo 1 remains were found in the Omo Kabish Formation in southwestern Ethiopia within the East Africa Rift Valley. The region is an area of high volcanic activity and a rich source of early human remains and artifacts such as stone tools. With the eruption of Shala volcano more than 400 kilometers away, the team dated the samples from the volcano to 230,000 years ago. Since the Omo 1 fossils were found deeper than the particular ash layer, they must be more than 230,000 years old. The researchers say that while this study shows a new minimum age for Homo sapiens in Eastern Africa, it's possible that new finds and new studies may extend the age of our species even further back in time. It's probably no coincidence that our earliest ancestors lived in such a geological active rift valley. It collected rainfall in lakes, providing fresh water and attracted animals, and served as a natural migration corridor stretching thousands of kilometers. The volcanoes provided fantastic materials to make stones, and from time to time, we had to develop our cognitive skills when large eruptions transformed the landscape. Kristen Lane, head of the Cambridge laboratory, where much of the work was carried out, said it's possible that new finds and new studies may extend the age of our species even further back in time. The research was supported in part by the Leverhulme Trust and the Cambridge Africa Research Fund and the Natural Environment Research Council and the National Environmental Isotope Facility. And yes, Ethiopia is in Africa, where all life began, where all black people are from. These are the facts. The top researchers in the world did the work to prove this. All these facts, they keep pouring out. So, I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the first.
The original indigenous inhabitants of this planet, planet Earth, the original Terrans, are the black people. Not African people. I'm saying the black people. And what came to light, thank you so much, Jarrett Johnson, one of my friends on Facebook. He sent me this amazing video, and I'm going to plug it in underneath, and you all need to watch. We have been lied, folks. We have been duped, believing that the way that the Africans came over to America was through a ship, through the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? And they were brought in from Africa as slaves. They were brought in, from Africa to Haiti and all these other places as slaves, right? Well, that's completely false. The truth about them, the true indigenous Terrans of this land, is before planet Earth was colonized, the whole planet was ran by the true Terrans, which are the black people, okay, or brown people. Well, I'm part brown, Mexican, I don't even know what you want to call it, but you know what I'm saying. You think about it, even in Mexico, the Olmec head has always baffled me because I thought, wow, the Olmec head, he looks very African. Well, of course. They're the true Terrans of the land.
Just so you know, Mexico is extremely racist. So we have what are like Guatemalans, even to its own Mexicans. So you got to remember, Mexico was dominated by the Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look is because I'm 65% Spaniard. Yeah. Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or which is known as Mexica, not Mexico, Mexica, are 5'4", super dark with big noses and the heads pushed back.
You see, she made mention of America should teach this in their school, which I don't think it is a bad thing. But let's ask ourselves, even in Africa, I know that many people, or even our big politicians, they know about this. But the question is, why are they not teaching this in our schools? This white woman is basically asking Americans to teach the kids in American schools. But even in Africa, we are not doing that. And that is where I have an issue. I don't even understand why we cannot just change our curriculum or probably create a whole new subject when it comes to history about black people. How to compile them, the facts, and teach the kids. Roughly by 20 years, 30 years time, we will have black kids that will grow up to become very proud of themselves being the first ever humans on this earth. And also, we shouldn't just teach kids about colonization came to Ghana. That was like, it has made it look like that is our history. We had history, we had things, we had technologies, we had a lot of things way before colonization. Why are we not teaching our kids? Why? I think it should begin from there, and that is when probably the African kid or the African youth will start having a change of mind about themselves, because the self-hate in Africa is also huge and it's very, 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 very big. We should do something about it, and I think it will do a lot of good for us as Africans too. Thank you so much for watching.